Now, in regards to coral's immune system, I will quite often hear people say, oh, my coral was going really well and then all of a sudden a bunch of them died as if it was some sort of surprise. Now, people obviously understand that when your water quality is bad, your corals die. And people understand that when your water quality is good, your corals tend to go good. But the thing that people tend to overlook is that when something with your coral is not quite right, then give it time and then your coral will be not quite right. Now, the corals have got an immune system, and the immune system of the coral over time falls. And when the immune system falls, it'll get to a certain point where the coral becomes weak. As soon as the coral becomes weak, then you'll find the fish are attracted to the weak coral and will literally pick on it, just like we saw that sailfin tang doing right then. So we've got a lovely, all these healthy coral, and you'll notice the sailfin just keep coming back to this area where the coral is weak and nip at it, nip at it, nip at it. Because as a generalization, in the wild, when something is weak, it is killed. And that is to help stop the spread of disease. So most animals kill their weak, and that helps to make the population strong. Really only us humans that look after our weak. Now, another misconception is that you know when the state of your coral's immune. Because over time, let's say that something is not right in a particular circumstance. Maybe there's too much water flow, maybe there's not enough water flow, maybe there's too much light, maybe there's not enough light, maybe there's too much nutrients, maybe there's not enough nutrients, maybe there's too much competition with stinging cells and space, maybe there's whatever. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why the immune system of the coral might be compromised, and obviously moving and relocating and transport and all that sort of stuff is a major cause for stress. But when an animal stresses, when its immune system goes down, then it gets weak and then it can catch an infection. And quite commonly, you might be in a situation where you think all your corals are good, but maybe their immune system is compromised by any one of the issues that I just discussed then. Maybe your pH has got not quite right, maybe your salt level's not quite right, maybe your temperature's not quite right. Then the immune system is compromised. All the corals are in the same boat. Or maybe you just bring in a new one, which has got an even lower immune system, gets a bacterial infection or whatever, and then sweeps through the rest of your corals. And then you might conclude that everything was fine until they got an infection, and that swept through all the corals and that killed all your corals. When it probably is not the case. It is probably that all the corals had a low immune system due to too much of something or not enough of something. Then one of them got a bacterial infection. The bacterial infection sweeps through all your corals because your corals don't have good enough immune systems to defend itself against even what could be a minor bacterial infection. A bit of brown jelly or something might land on a healthy coral. The coral might literally eat it or just swash it off. Whereas it lands on a sick one, infects it, it doesn't have the ability to defend itself. So don't be under the illusion that you can tell the state of your coral's health. If your corals are growing and thriving, then you're pretty safe. But if your corals are slowly taking time to die, then you need to re-examine your situation. What is wrong? Check the 8 principles. Go on Majestic Aquariums TV on YouTube. Watch each one of those principles, and one of those are likely to be the reason. Too much light, not enough light. Too much water flow, not enough water flow. Too much nutrients, not enough nutrients. Now, sometimes you have trouble finding the mystery problem. The mystery problem might be solved by sitting back and watching, and you might find a fish or an invertebrate or something that nips out at night time and harasses particular corals, or nips on them, bites them. Or sometimes it's good just to send away ICP tests, because obviously there's various things we can test in an aquarium, but there's also various things that can accumulate in an aquarium that potentially we not only don't know about, but we can't test. So if you send away laboratory tests to companies like Triton can sell you a test kit that you fill up and send back to them. They then send you a report which is able to map out all your minor, trace and so forth elements. And you might find amongst that data that something is completely out. You can then do some big water changes and adjust your supplement combinations and so forth, and then address that problem. Send away another Triton test and see where you're at. But using these ICP Triton tests are often quite a good way of uncovering mystery problems that you don't know that you don't know. But at the end of the day is that if your corals are growing, thriving, then you're all good. If over time your corals are dying, you really can't be in a position where you say, my corals live for a year. Because that really isn't the case. It really is the case that your corals take a year to die. And if your corals take a year to die, then you need to find the source of why they take a year to die. And it will simply be that you've got too much of something or not enough of something. Anyway, put a little note on the bottom of this video. Have you tried Triton tests? Have the Triton ICP tests uncovered anything for you? Have you had situations where the immune system of your corals have become suppressed? And what advice have you got for anyone that may be in a similar situation?